Greetings, Culturians, and welcome back to the channel. Boy, do we have more for you. That's right. Wicked for good. Well, wicked for maybe the last time, or possibly the next to last time. There's a lot of rumors going around about whether or not we're going to get more of this, but what we're definitely not going to get more of is more days of powerful box office. Now, don't misunderstand me here. This film is ready to cook, and it has been already this last weekend. But there's some problems on the horizon, like competition and major competition at that. And of course, the one thing to get lost in all of this is just how long can a theater kid's dream actually go on? Well, it seems for Cynthia Erivo and for Ariana Grande, this may be the last straw. So, here we go. Now, of course, Wicked for Good was expected to do rather well this last weekend, and it absolutely did. Anthony Alessandro and Nancy and everybody else that was in the prediction game kind of had this dialed in. There was no way to miss it. Wicked for Good set all the box office records that it was expected to, and at times even exceeded some people's expectations. Not mine, but a few others, and I have to tell you that there are a few places where it might be letting people down. It's even possible that this doesn't make the kind of money they were anticipating, but according to Deadline, all the box office records were broken. Well, a lot of them anyway. Universal's Wicked for Good essentially beat itself in the box office. The franchise's first half, if you remember the first movie, kind of beat it up pretty good last year, but this year, it opened to a solid 150 million domestic and 226 million around the world. And again, you'll see more of this if you're going to tune in for today's live show where we talk about the box office and where I really think this is going to end up, because I don't think this is going to end up in record territory as some people are projecting. I think this thing may finish far below what a lot of people's expectations are and only top out in that $800 million window, which will leave it well below what the hopes were by Universal when this whole thing kicked off. Of course, it set records like biggest global domestic opening ever for Cynthia Erivo and Jonathan Chu, and of course, Ariana Grande, and the biggest opening ever for a musical feature by Steven Schwartz, and on and on and on and on. None of that really seems to matter. At the end of the day, these are all as expected moments. And while this is going to look good on some kind of an award show at the end of the year, it may not even be in the conversation as far as biggest movie of the year. That may actually happen later this weekend, and we'll get to that in just a moment. But in looking at another one of Deadline's stories, Wicked for Good opening to 150 million, records broken, Cynthia Erivo, yada, 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 gives us, well, a lot to take away. Since this was a legitimate 3-day domestic, except it wasn't in that it started all the way back on Monday, having it debuted at 226 million global isn't that big of a surprise. The previous global record for a musical opening to this size, of course, was Aladdin at 213 million. And the most important thing here is that this is the second biggest movie of the year. Opening stateside at 112 million and 164 million global, this makes it number 2 to Minecraft's $162.7 million opening. And that's not even a half of it. You see, there's a possibility that Zootopia opens even bigger next weekend and overall outperforms this particular film in the long run. Not to mention Avatar or possibly some other film that we have yet to discover, because it's that kind of year where we could be surprised. But I think one of the most important things that we could actually take a look at was the day that it actually opened, with big previews and huge numbers, 68.6 million on opening day. This was very needed. First, not just for this movie, but for the box office overall, which, as I've been pointing out over the last few weeks, if you've been paying attention, has been sinking well below $100 million for the 3 days that are the most important to theaters. Having the second biggest debut of 2025 is nothing to shake a stick at, or a hat at, or, a nose at, or whatever else you've got. And this was a wide opening, as a matter of fact, with 4,115 theaters in North America alone, sitting on that 68.6 million across all of Friday and preview screenings on Thursday. Once again, with only its competition being the Minecraft movie and Lilo and Stitch, this film has acquitted itself well and is lifting off for Universal in a way that they absolutely dreamed about. But with the record smashing 150 million in the US and 226 million global, is this film big enough to rule the year? Well, I think the answer is already simple enough to say no, considering we're not even sure that there won't be one or two other films that will beat this out in the next few weeks. The female-fueled movie shattered numerous opening records, as we mentioned before, but the third biggest all-time musical as compared to 2019's The Lion King, that's something to roar about. But as I always say, the numbers are the numbers, and Wicked for Good on this weekend did very good, as a matter of fact, with 226 million global, and that international number coming up to 76 million. But keep an eye out on that, because I think that's set to disappoint. There are not as many theater kids globally as there certainly seems to be here in North America, and that 150 million might be a little thin. And why do I say it's thin? Because I think that everybody who wanted to see this film has seen it, and that will bear out in the next 2 weekends. But that isn't even my biggest concern. No, of course not. I'm worried about the fact that this movie is going to fall down the rabbit hole, not just in terms of box office interest from fans, but because there are other things out there waiting in the wings to flat out compete. Most importantly, the one that I think everybody should be paying attention to is Zootopia. That's right, Zootopia 2 is a short film that's going to show up starting very soon, if not even tomorrow, in some theaters around the country, that is less than 2 hours in length. At 1 hour and 48 minutes, this has kids labeled all over it, and the turnaround time is something specifically designed for as many showings as it can get per day. If this somehow magically turns out not to be the woke that it's been rumored to be, it could end up as the biggest holiday performer of the year. And that says a lot, considering its end-of-year competition is Avatar: Fire and Ash. And from what I'm hearing about pre-sales in China specifically, these numbers are going to be elevated in a way that most American films have not been in China in a long, long time. In fact, in a way that I want to emphasize here with Box Office Theory, Zootopia 2, opening on 11/26/2025, could be opening to 102 million domestic, even as high as 122. This domestic performance could put Zootopia well over $470 million in its entire domestic run. And by the time we bring in the international numbers, it could be darn close to $1 billion. And if that's the case, well, I think we may have a new leader in the clubhouse for 2025. But hey, those are my thoughts. What are yours? Let me know what you think down in the comments section below. Do you think that Zootopia somehow magically pulls the rug out from underneath Wicked in its second weekend, which is just around the corner? Do you think that Avatar: Fire and Ash does something surprising towards the end of the year? Do you think that Disney has a chance to reclaim the box office title just as both Warner Brothers and Comcast each have a claim to it as we get ready to round out for 2025? Or do you think that somehow, magically, Wicked will retain the title for the end of the year? Let me know your thoughts down in the comments section below, along with your thoughts about any of the movies if you've happened to seen one this weekend. As always, be sure to take care of yourself, take care of others, and until next time, see ya! But not at Wicked. No, thank you.